We hear a lot about the big society. Does anyone realise just how much of that society already exists with our search and rescue services? Does anyone keep a lookout over our shoreline for the rapidly increasing number of leisure users and, of course, people who go walking along the shoreline? Accidents do happen, whether it's a child drifting out to sea on a lilo, a yacht or a fishing boat with engine trouble, a diver in difficulties, or a car with someone trapped in it on a cliff. On those occasions, you need help. These days, we've grown used to relying upon electronics to navigate ourselves out of trouble. But let's not forget the importance of a lookout, the good old eyeball Mark I, when things get really dirty. Let me tell you about one of the best-kept secrets in search and rescue. It's called the National Coastwatch, or NCI for short.
The National Coastwatch institution has over 1,900 volunteers whose aim is in assisting the preservation of life and safety at sea around our coastline, manning some 46 lookout stations around the coast.
Mobile.
The organisation is a charity, but nevertheless trains its watchkeepers to a professional high standard to monitor the inshore waters and coastal paths. But how is it that it's volunteers who man the lookouts on our coastline? Well, up until the 1990s, the lookouts were manned by coastguards, but with the fast-moving technological revolution, it was deemed that these sites were uneconomical and they were closed down. Britain's most southerly station here at Bass Point closed in 1992, and like all such stations around the country, it was left to the ravages of time. A few months later, a small boat with 2 fishermen on board left this nearby Cornish village, never to return. They came to grief near of what was then an unmanned lookout.
2 fishermen lost their lives in an accident just over there off Black Head. That prompted local people to express even more concern at the loss of what was previously a Coast Guard station, and so NCI was formed, a group of local people initially. There was a tremendous amount of work involved refurbishing this building, negotiating a lease with National Trust, and it was all done purely with voluntary contributions. And the station was reopened in December 1994.
So the NCI was born here at Bass Point on the Lizard and set up as a registered charity. Slowly the organisation grew, with many of the abandoned Coast Guard lookouts around the coast renovated and equipped and manned by volunteers. They come in all shapes and sizes, from very small and cramped stations such as Whitstable, Worm's Head and Southend, to the larger constructions such as Calshot on its high tower, Skegness and Russell Point. Currently there are 49 stations with over 2,000 trained watchkeepers. In the last 12 months they covered 190,000 man-hours of coastal surveillance. They logged and identified nearly 425,000 vessels within their operational areas, and they reported over 300 incidents to the rescue services, including 53 that initiated calling out a lifeboat. Watchkeepers come from all walks of life. Some have experience of the sea, while for others it's a completely new experience.
So I'm very interested in things to do with the sea. I undertake some sail training with adults and young people, and the idea of being up the tower and keeping a watch on what was going on and getting a view which very few other people get was something which really attracted me to this.
I was actually up here 10 years ago as a Coast Guard, doing part-time, and they closed this site down and went over to Weymouth to work from town. So I left and had about a year doing nothing much, and then I kept meeting all these people who were saying, oh, we've gone down the Portland Bill and we've opened up the old Coast Guard station, you ought to come down. Of course I came down here and they didn't let me go, so I've been here ever since.
Their role is to keep a visual watch of vessels, large and small, within sight of their station, log all movements as to what type it is, direction and speed, so that if it's reported missing, it can be traced through the log at the station. And of course they report any potential incidents to the local Coast Guard station, and that includes coastal paths where maybe walkers have got into trouble. Each station has to hand various basic equipment to help in its role, particularly powerful binoculars, marine radar, radios and automatic ship identification. They also record for the information of local shipping, walkers and the Coast Guard current weather conditions including wind speed and direction, temperatures, sea conditions and cloud. But to be able to fulfil this role, all potential recruits should be prepared to do 4 hours watchkeeping a week and go through a comprehensive training programme. This can take several months and covers everything they may be faced with, from identification of vessels, using the radio and all the equipment of the station, as well as dealing with emergencies.
Mayday, 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 mayday. This is vessel Star, Mayday, fishing vessel with 2 people making on water, and my position is 50.33.55.
In this training exercise, our trainee is learning how to pass on a Mayday relay to the Coast Guards, when for some reason they've not been able to pick up the Mayday call.
Water, 2 people on board, position 50 degrees, 33.55 north.
Before they become a fully fledged watchkeeper, they will be assessed on 3 different watches as to their suitability to fill the role.
This is my 3rd watch so far, my 3rd one as of today. And so far I've been going through the training manual and picking out bits and pieces that I think I can do. Obviously not everything at once, because there's 33 different modules to go through before you're a qualified watchkeeper.
It took me about a year to do the sort of written work and the course, and I was a blank page, and so really I had no idea about weather, tides, type of boat, anything. So I started from scratch, and as I progressed, almost like the view that I'm looking at now, just a whole vista opened up to me.
But it's not just the individual watchkeeper that has to meet specified skills. With over 40 stations around the country, every NCI lookout is expected to meet a professional standard.
To be accepted as an integral part of the National Search and Rescue Organisation, each NCI station has to achieve what is known as DFS, Declared Facility Status. And to help with this, the NCI has appointed an assessment team. One team in the west of the country and the other in the east. And the job of these 2 teams is threefold. First of all, to bring a station up to DFS standard by checking it when it originally opens, and checking it about a year before it's ready for DFS by having a dummy run visit. Then actually to do the DFS assessment, on which occasion there'll be 2 assessors and a representative of the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency, and thereafter maintain the standards by visiting every year. The assessment itself consists of using radio procedures, plotting, chart work, recognition, how to understand and interpret flags displayed by vessels, but most importantly showing that it can react correctly and contact the Coast Guard when an emergency occurs.
Brixham, this is NCI Pool Point. We're commencing exercise May. Okay, for exercise, the casualties are 2 divers drifting away from the
From time to time, stations also have the opportunity to train with other agencies. Here at Pool Point, the station is involved in a joint exercise with the local lifeboat, replicating an incident where the lookout was able to spot 2 missing divers who drifted from their dive boat. The watchkeepers were then able visually to guide the lifeboat to the casualties.
Salcombe Lifeboat, this is NCI Pool Point, NCI Pool Point. For exercise, the casualties are 2 drifting divers in position 50 degrees 12.2 minutes north, 003 degrees 43.1 minutes west.
NCI Point, this is Salcombe Lifeboat, exercise only. We have 2 drifting divers, position 50 degrees north, 003 degrees, 43.1 west. Over.
Salcombe Lifeboat for exercise. Your course is still good. You are 0.5 of a nautical mile from the casualty. Over.
NCI 4 point, this is Salcombe Lifeboat for exercise. We're going to recover that casualty to the ALD. Over.
Salcombe Lifeboat for exercise. The dive boat is 153 degrees true from Paul Point, 2 miles.
Over's been recovered safe and well. Can you give us the position of the dive boat again? Over.
Salcombe Lifeboat for exercise. The dive boat is bearing 165 degrees true from Paul Point, approximately 2.5 nautical miles. Over.
Such events provide a valuable opportunity to test the cooperation between all the emergency services, and for the NCI an opportunity to put into practice eventualities that they've trained for. Another incident where NCI watchkeepers spotted trouble comes from Portland. They spotted a French yacht in difficulties in the race off Portland Bill and alerted Portland Coast Guard of its exact location before the yacht itself was able to put out a call for help. The early warning got the lifeboat and helicopter on scene quickly and helped to prevent a possible disaster. The dismasted yacht was saved and towed into Weymouth. That incident is one of the many potential dangers at sea and on coastal paths that get spotted by watchkeepers, and their visual contact provides this important link with the other emergency services.
As a lifeboat coxswain, it's invaluable really, especially here in Salcombe. You've got Pearl Point Coastwatch, miles up on the cliff there. It's almost like having a helicopter up in the sky as far as eyes watching concerned. And we've got a very close working relationship with Pearl Point, and it's an invaluable position up there. Anybody who travels up and down this stretch of water, it's a pair of eyes looking out all the time. It's very, very, very useful.
The value of the stations around the coast cannot be overestimated, but they don't come free. Even though watchkeepers are all volunteers and pay for their own uniforms and travel, the cost of running these stations relies entirely on charity, donations from the public and organisations. The cost of running a station now is over £4,000 a year, and it's up to individual stations to raise their own funds by whatever means, from town centre and supermarket collecting, bring and buy sales, open days at stations, and strategically placed collecting boxes and other sources. So what of the future of the NCI? Is it getting too big, or will it continue to grow and cover more of our coastline?
The growth in NCI over the past 10 years or so has been quite spectacular, and it has brought us to a critical stage in our development. And it raises the question, what does the future hold for us? We believe that the future lies in growth. We aim to increase the number of watch stations around our coast, and this will allow us to make the coastline even safer for those who use it. In order to do this, we need funding and we need volunteers. Work is already in hand to do something about our funding, and I have no doubt that we will continue to see the same flow of willing volunteers as we have had in the past. With these two things in place, it will allow us to enhance our position as a key player in the National Search and Rescue Organisation.
You might well have been surprised by the professionalism and enthusiasm of these volunteer watchkeepers. But, and there's always a but, if they're going to continue this vital service, they need your help. Please give it to them.